Hello everyone, welcome to another interesting and informative session of the Analyst brought to you by Vajiram and Ravi. In today's video, we will discuss 9 important articles as featured in the Hindu and Indian Express for your larger understanding of the current affairs. The main articles are as follows. In the first article, we will read about the issue of human rights violations and the role of National Human Rights Commission. Then in the second article, we will inquire about the silver economy and the steps to harness its potential. In the third article, we will try to understand what is the concept behind anticyclone. Then in the fourth article, we will read about the plastic treaty which is being negotiated in Ottawa, Canada. And finally, in the fifth article, we will try to understand the economic concepts of NEER and REER. Towards the end, there will be 4 news snippets especially curated to help you excel in the upcoming prelims examination. So stay tuned. As National Human Rights Commission aims to retain its A status at the United Nations Human Rights Council, the issue of human rights violations in our country demands urgent attention. These issues of human rights violations which are taking place in our country forms an important component of your GS1 and GS2 paper under the various theme of social issues, the effect of policies of countries on India's interest, as well as the important international institutions such as NHRC, which we are going to discuss further in the session. But let's first try to understand what exactly is human rights. Human rights is basically an all-encompassing terms which are the basic rights required for the overall development of a human being and to ensure the dignity of an individual, such as right to education, right to food, right to clean environment, etc. Thus, they are also enshrined as fundamental right in the part 3 of the Constitution, such as right to equality under Article 14 of the Constitution, right of prohibition against discrimination by the state on various grounds such as sex, place of birth, caste, etc. under Article 15, your right to freedom of speech and expression, right to freedom of movement, right to freedom of residence across the country under the wider rights of Article 19, as well as the penultimate right of dignified life and personal liberty under Article 21 of the Constitution. Then, the Government of India has also devised various statutory mechanisms to protect such basic rights. For example, Prevention of Atrocities against SC/ST Act of 1989, Prohibition on Manual Scavenging Act of 2013, Your Right to Education Act of 2009, or for example, Right to Information Act of 2005. However, in recent years, there has been increasing cases of human rights violations in our country. For example, a majority of the population of our country remains hunger, thus violating their right to food, which is obviously the basic need for a person to be alive. And this is reflected from our abysmal ranking in the Global Hunger Index of 2023, where India ranked 111th out of 125 countries with the 18% child wasting rate, and keep this in mind, this is the highest rate in the world. As well as there are certain basic freedoms which we have as a human, such as for example, if there is a tyrannical government which are taking certain steps which goes against our right, then we have this basic right to raise our voice against that government, which forms the basic principle of a democratic setup like India. However, as per the Human Freedom Index, even there, India has plummeted 17 spots and has ranked 111th out of 162 nations. Then, obviously, there is issue of ethnic violences which is taking place, and many of the time the government has not been able to stop such heinous crimes which are taking place among the human and communities, such as the ethnic violence between Kuki and Zimo community which took place in Manipur, as well as the number of communal riots which has been increasing over a period of years. Then obviously there is violence which are being committed against the women, which can be seen from the graph here, where the percentage distribution of crime against women has been replicated. And such heinous crimes such as the assault of women or the cruelty which woman faces because of her husband and relatives, that forms the majority of the share and has been increasing as well. Then issues such as rape, kidnapping and abduction, the assault of women with an intent to outrage her modesty, all of this, which basically violates her basic rights, is actually increasing over a period of years. Then the various organizations or civil society organizations which actually works to either protect these fundamental rights and basic rights or raise their voices if these basic rights are being violated either by a state agency or by a group of people, these agencies are actually being curtailed in our country under various regulation such as the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act as well. Also in our country there stands a kind of a division on the basis of class, caste, gender, etc. When we talk specifically in the terms of caste, let's say we have scheduled tribes, scheduled castes, backward classes, these people, they face several kind of violations associated with their basic right, such as the right to health as well, where we can see from the graph that the share of women who reported the problems while accessing the basic primary health care, a majority of them actually lied in SC, ST and OBC. Also, the share of women who received antenatal care in the presence of doctor, that share is lowest among this particular section, showing the various kind of atrocities and violations of basic rights which this particular section faces in our country. As well as if we can see here the map which depicts the manual scavenging deaths which has been taken place across the country. While on one hand we are trying to become a developed nation by 2047, at the same time in 2024 still there exists the heinous issue of manual scavenging, where the people have to enter into the sewage drains to clean them manually. And this number of deaths actually shows the intensity of this issue which exists and persists in our country, thus obviously violating the basic rights of theirs. As well as if we talk in the overall terms of the quality of life, we can see that how India fares poorly in various parameters of providing education, food, health, housing as well as work. Thus, in light of these human rights violations, the role of National Human Rights Commission as a watchdog to protect and safeguard human rights of the people in the country becomes much more important. The National Human Rights Commission, which is a statutory body created under the Protection of Human Rights Act of 1993, which comprises of a chairperson and 5 other members, where the chairperson is either a retired Chief Justice of India or the Judge of Supreme Court. The 5 other member comprises of 1 member who is either a retired or serving Judge of Supreme Court or the retired or serving Chief Justice of High Court. Then there are 3 more members who are selected on the basis of their experience in dealing with these human rights matters. Now there is a committee which is formed for the selection of this commission, and that committee comprises of Prime Minister, Home Minister, the leader of opposition in both the houses, Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, as well as the Speaker of Lok Sabha and the Chairman of Rajya Sabha, which happens to be the Vice President. This committee then sends their recommendation to President, and ultimately the member of these commission are appointed by the President. Now, this chairperson this commission has the power to either proceed with suo motu inquiry. What do we understand by that? Which means that either the commission is going to take any particular matter if it has come through the complaint by the aggrieved person, or the commission can suo motu proceed without the complaint of the aggrieved person as well, if there is taking place any violation of human rights or negligence in the prevention of human rights by public servant. Then the Human Rights Commission can review the constitutional and legal safeguard for the protection of human rights, as well as it can encourage the effort of non-governmental organizations which are taking place in this particular regard. Thus, with the steps of National Human Rights Commission, several steps which has been taken place in our country to ensure and protect the human rights, such as the abolition of bondage and child labor as well as manual scavenging. So the act was enacted in 2013. Then the prevention of atrocities against Dalits. Also the functioning of mental hospitals as well as the government protective homes. Then the Commission has also taken the issues which are associated with the right to food, to prevent the trafficking in the women, implementation of Vishakha guidelines to protect the sexual harassment of women which was taking place at the workplace. So the POSH guidelines of 2013 was framed. Then it has created District Complaints Authority to ensure that if there is any human right violation which are taking place at that low level, it shall be brought before the Commission. Also, it has created for the protection of human rights in the area of insurgency and terrorism, such as in Jammu and Kashmir or in the areas of insurgency in the northeast, as well as provided a check on the custodial deaths, rape and torture. Thus, with these efforts of National Human Rights Commission, India got an accreditation status to the Global National Alliance on Human Rights Institutions in the year of 1999, where it was provided a category A status, and India retained this status in the 5-year periodic review which take place in 2006 as well as in 2011. So now let's first try to understand what exactly is this GNAHRI. Well, GNAHRI or Global National Alliance on Human Rights Institution, keep this in mind that it is a UN recognized body and not a United Nations body. It is basically, it acts as a network of all the national human rights institutions which exist across the country, and it plays the coordination part between these national human rights institutions and the United Nations Human Rights Council. Currently, this GNHRI has 120 members, and out of them 88 has got this category A accreditation. Now one may wonder that what does this category A status stand for? It basically means that the country or the National Human Rights Council of that country is actually in full compliance with the 1993 Paris Principle. Paris Principle, which act as a guideline to protect the independence of these National Human Rights Commission, so they act as a watchdog to protect the human rights in their country. And why do we require such category A status? What is the benefit of that? So if we will get a category A status, it ensures that National Human Rights Commission of our country, it will get a hearing seat as well as it can take participation in voting in the matters of United Nations Human Rights Council. Thus, if we lose this category A status, then the National Human Rights Commission of our country, it cannot represent our country in UNHRC. And such categorization is based by GNHRI on several principles which were laid down in the Paris Principle of 1993. And what are those parameters? Such as these NHRIs should be independent in their policy making, which basically means that they shall be independent to advise to the parliament and the government, as well as have independent stakes in the human rights investigation and inquiries. Then these NHRIs shall reflect the pluralism which exists in their society by incorporating the members from the different communities, caste, religion, etc. Then NHRI should also have independence in law, where Paris Principles specifically laid down that these NHRIs shall be guaranteed in its founding legislation and they shall be established under the constitution of the state. Then they shall have adequate funding so they can support the NGOs which are working for the protection of human rights. They shall also have independence in their leadership, which means that the chairperson, it shall not have any kind of affiliation with the government, and then they shall also provide for allocation of various human rights promotion and safeguarding activities. However, the National Human Rights Commission of our country is actually mired with several criticism which is being raised by the international bodies as well as civil society organizations. The first of them being that NHRC is only recommendatory in the nature, which means that, okay, let's say that there is ethnic violence taking place in Manipur. The maximum National Human Rights Commission can do is that it can direct the center to take adequate safeguards to prevent such ethnic violence. And that's it. It is completely up to the government to whether to follow this advice or not. Then it has limited powers over armed forces, specifically under the Article 33 of the Constitution, which empowers the parliament to safeguard or restrict certain fundamental rights for the implementation in armed forces. Then these NHRC, they lack any kind of autonomy because they do not have any independent category or quota of investigating officers, and they completely rely on the police agencies to do the investigation for them. Thus, it is obvious that this principle of independence is already violated. Then, the civil society organizations are raising this issue time and again that there is a bureaucratic and political overreach when it comes to NHRC. Such as, for example, currently 2 members are actually of IPS and CBI background. And then majority of the members are somewhere or other politically affiliated to the ruling party, thus obviously contravening the independence principle which has been laid down under the Paris Principle of 1993. Also, currently the NHRC, it does not reflect the diversity of the Indian society because it does not has any single member from the minority religions which exist in our country. And then because of these issues, the category A status which has been given to NHRC by the GNHRI, it was actually deferred in 2016. However, it was restored back in 2017. Thus, there is an imperative need for various kind of reforms which shall be taken when it comes to the National Human Rights Commission. First of them can be to provide it a constitutional status. The second of that can be that its advices shall be made binding on the government, as well as it shall be provided with independent funds under the Consolidated Fund of India, so that it can take actually fund and help the NGOs which are taking place in safeguarding the human rights. On the basis of this information, try to solve these practice questions revolving around NHRC and comment your answer in the comment box. Be very careful of 2 things. First, be very precise and set a timer and then solve. We move forward to the next news. The editorial highlights the swelling population of elderly in our country and thus the rising need of imminent reforms to reap the benefits of silver economy. This silver economy forms an important component of your GS2 paper under the theme of issues related to elderly and the human resource. Well, as per the United Nations World Population Prospect Report of 2022, the elderly population in our country, or the people who are 60 above, that population is going to reach 319 million by the year of 2050, thus comprising 20% of our total population. As per the National Policy on Older Person 1999, it directed the state to incorporate these elderly people in the path of economic development, thus leading to the rise of the concept of silver economy. Silver economy, which basically refers to the economic activity and the market opportunities which are generated by the aging of population, encompassing goods and services that are specifically designed to meet the needs and the preferences of the older people. However, before we can benefit or reap from this silver economy, first we need to address that this silver economy or the elder people in our country, they are facing several challenges. First of them comes from the economic aspect of it. Well, as we can see from the United Nations report itself, there is a rising dependency ratio of this particular section. So if we are saying that this population is going to reach 20% by the year of 2050, what we also can indicate from that is that 20% of the population will actually become dependent on the earning population of that time, thus significantly hampering our demographic dividend and the capital generation capability of that earning section. Then it is not that the complete of this silver economy, they just want to become reliant on or dependent on their child or the young population. Many of them actually wants to work, but there is issue of lack of job avenues. Because with this particular section, what most of the company associate is that this particular section is going to face a lot of health issues, and thus there will be a lot of loss of working days when it comes to this section of economy. Thus they start excluding these older people from the corporate structures. At the same time, there is this ongoing debate that we shall increase the retirement age of these old people, right, which is normally around 60 to 62 in most of the public sector units or in the government jobs. So let's say that there is a person who has qualified UPSC and now that person has reached to the age of 60 to 62 years. And he has served in various domains such as being a district magistrate, then being a secretary, then being a cabinet secretary. So it is obvious that this person has plethora of experience and learnings to further serve the country. But at the same time, as per the requirement, that person shall be retired at the age of 62. So if we are saying that no, this person shall not be retired, then it is obvious that the overall vacancy for the new entrants through this exam will obviously decline. Thus, there exists a double-edged sword of the retirement age. So if we are not going to make this person retire by 60-62, it will actually hamper the new entrants in the economy. Then there is a large section of this old people who are actually out of any social security net, because as per the periodic labor force survey, 90% of our economy falls in the informal category, such as your driving rickshaw or delivering to your home or doing these meager works. And even if we want that these people shall be incorporated in the economy, there exists a bigger issue of their limited access to the technological advancements which has so rapidly taken place, especially under Industry 4.0. Because on one hand, we are seeing that the companies, they are going for automation. They want the people who are skilled enough to drive artificial intelligence. And then there is this another section of old people who still cannot properly operate their mobiles. So how we are going to incorporate them in this Industry 4.0? For example, let's say you come out of the metro station and you want to take a rickshaw. There are 3 rickshawalas. Out of them, 2 are young people, 1 is the old person. You want that old person actually to earn some money because he is in the dire need of it. So you want to use his rickshaw, but you, as you are become the habitual to the digital economy, you do all your payments through Phone Pay, Paytm, etc. But that person does not even have a smartphone to have that app. So how that person is going to get incorporated or earn money? And all of these issues obviously compound to the issue of reskilling of this larger section of older people. Then this poor financial status, it actually translates into the poor health status. This poor financial status, such as if you can see here that 22% of the elderly people, they face some kind or other of poverty. And 19% of these elderly people, they did not even had any income sources. So it is obvious that it will lead to poor health status, where they will have poor nutritional status and several kind of comorbidities, as there exists a 23% prevalence of multimorbidity or 2 or more chronic conditions, right? Because of this, it is obvious. Now further, there exists a poor health infrastructure in our country where we do not have ample amount of primary healthcare hospitals, secondary healthcare hospitals. So because of all this, there will be a large section of older people who cannot actually get treated in the public health infrastructure. So they will have to move towards private healthcare infrastructure, which is actually very expensive, providing for medical services. Thus, and these people, they already have a poor financial status, as we saw from here and here. So they will not be able to afford this expensive healthcare because of the high out-of-pocket expenditure. Thus, their economic as well as health conditions deteriorate over the years. And ultimately, they are also mired with a lot of social issues which are prevailing in our society. First of them is the rise of nuclear family. As per the Indian Express report, the average household size, which used to be 5.94 in 2011, it has drastically declined to 3.54 in 2021. And the number of nuclear families are actually swelling and increasing, as we can see from the graph here. Because of which, these old people, they do not have ample amount of care support which they require, as well as either they are left isolated in the villages, or if they are being called to the cities, it is only for the child care support. And if they do not provide adequate services, these child care services, then they face the grave issue of domestic abuse and violence as well. And obviously, as we have seen, most of them are economically dependent on this younger generation or on their wards, children's, etc. Thus, there is increasing issue of loneliness and isolation, as we can see. Most of them either living alone or two people just by themselves. And these people are actually more prone to the issues of theft, violence, crime, all of this which take place. Then there is obviously the swelling of old age homes which is taking place, where they are just left in the old age homes, or because of the various property disputes which take place, or the increasing cases of the violence against the elderly. All of this actually deteriorates their economic capital which we can harness. Also, there exists the increasing cases of violence by the elderly people. Now, this may sound surprising, but what happens that if there is a nuclear family and it is patriarchal family, then the younger people who come, let's say the daughter-in-law, they are actually put in a subsidiary role, right, in a submissive role, where their main job is to either produce the kids or to take care of the family. Or these elderly people, they actually impose themselves on this younger generation, where they are bound to take care of these elderly people. Thus, there is also increasing issue of violence which is being conducted by the elderly people, as well as they are also being the accused of it as well as the victim of it. Thus, to tackle with all these issues, under the constitutional directive of Article 46, which directs the state to provide public assistance in the case of old age, the government has taken several steps. First of them is the Ministry of Social Justice, which has launched a sacred portal, which acts as a one-stop portal for the elderly who are seeking employment opportunities. So if there is any particular government agency or NGOs, all of them can employ elderly people at this particular portal. Then there is a SAGE portal, or Senior Care Aging Growth Engine, under which it acts as a one-stop solution for all the startups which are trying to develop elderly sector oriented products. Then the government has launched an All India toll-free helpline, that is Elder Line, of 14567 number. Also, there exists an integrated program for the older person, under which the government is trying to improve the living conditions of the older people by providing them with basic amenities such as shelter, food, healthcare, etc. Then the government has launched a Rashtriya Vayoshri Yojana, under which the government is aiming to provide aid and living assistance systems such as hearing aid or your glasses to the people who cannot see, to specifically the section which falls in the below poverty line category. Further, to improve their financial independence, the government has also launched a Pradhan Mantri Vay Vandana Yojana, under which the elderly section, they can plan a pension scheme for them, where the entry age has been extended up to 60 years, where they will be provided with assured return of 8% per annum, and they can take this pension in several categories such as monthly, half yearly, yearly, etc. However, as per the report, there are several other steps which can be taken, and it provides for some innovative measures, such as per the suggestion of Niti Aayog, the health care shall be offered at the home through the trained professional to these elderly people, which according to Niti Aayog will reduce the 65% unnecessary hospital visit as well as 20% of out-of-pocket expenditure. We can further actually integrate with the idea of telemedicine under the e-Sanjeevani platform and further enhance this idea of Niti Aayog. Then there shall also is the requirement for the enactment of Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizen Bill 2019, which has not been passed yet. Then we can adopt for the Madrid Plan of Action, which actually provides or set the guidelines for healthcare system which shall be devised for the elderly section of the people. Also, we can adopt the Assam model of Pranam Act, where it is trying to incentivize the government employees to take care of their parents, which has been made compulsory. And there shall be action which shall be taken against these government employees in the case of violation. Also, there is another innovative model coming from the Malappuram in Kerala, which has provided for a palliative care model. What does it suggest? It says that we can integrate the old age house to the orphanage, where these old age people shall provide their learning, induce moral conduct to these orphanage children. And here we can also adopt for the Swiss time bank concept, where it aims to provide social credit to these elder people who provide various kind of free services which are just valuable. So with all these innovative ideas, it is important for our country to not only focus on the demographic dividend as well as to harness this silver economy and make our old age people future ready for the developed nation or Viksit Bharat by 2047. With these suggestions, we move forward to the next news. The anticyclonic conditions over Indian Ocean has significantly altered India's pre-monsoon weather patterns, highlighting the need of a strong early warning system. This phenomena of anticyclone forms an important component of your GS3 paper under the larger theme of geophysical phenomena. So let's first try to imagine a normal condition prevailing in the place called as A. This place is experiencing high degree of temperature. Thus, here the air will start rising because of the heating of the surface. Thus, as the air is rising above here, it is obvious that low pressure will be created on this region A. Now, following the law of pressure gradient force, which says that the wind blows from high pressure to low pressure, the region from high pressure, the wind will start blowing towards this low pressure area to fill it. Now, let's say that this particular area is in the northern hemisphere, and there also exists a little bit of Coriolis force which will deflect the wind in this particular way, in anti-clockwise way. Thus, the air will now start rising, right? Now, because of the rising of the air, as the air will go up, the temperature will decline. Why? Because there exists a lapse rate of 6.5 degrees Celsius per kilometer. So, with every kilometer we rise in the altitude, the temperature will decline by 6.5 degrees Celsius. So now when this warmer air is rising above, because of the decline in the temperature, the condensation will take place and ultimately it will lead to the precipitation. If this same low pressure area is forming over the ocean, and because of the presence of such Coriolis force, it can lead to the cyclonic conditions. But what if the complete reversal of these conditions take place? That is exactly what happens in an anticyclone. So now when you have understood the reason A completely, if you remember, we were talking about the high pressure area from which the air is blowing to fill this low pressure area. But now what happens at that place B where the high pressure area has formed and the air has started moving in this particular direction? Again, the pressure gradient force will apply here as well. So if at the ground level the air is moving in this direction, it is obvious that the air deficit is taking place here. So now the air from the above troposphere level, that will start subsiding to fill this gap which has been created. And because of this subsiding air, the now air is subsiding in this particular way, and now in the northern hemisphere it will start moving in the clockwise direction and leading to the formation of anticyclonic condition. So in cyclonic condition there exists a low pressure at the center, in anticyclonic a high pressure. In cyclonic conditions the air leads to convergence, and in anticyclonic it leads to divergence. As we discussed, it will be anti-clockwise in the cyclonic and clockwise in the anticyclonic. Then in cyclone, when this wind is coming and getting converged and rising above, massive evaporation and precipitation will take place. So cyclone is characterized by cloudy weather, strong winds and rains. But anticyclone on the other hand will have clear skies because all the air is subsiding and fair weather and a mild breeze. Thus, in the month of summer, this anticyclonic conditions can lead to the solar heating of surface. And now imagine that we were talking about this lapse rate. So here the temperature is cold, here the temperature is warm. Now the air is subsiding from the colder region to the warmer region at the ground level. So it is obvious that the air will start getting heated, and thus there can be creation of heat domes or intense heat conditions at the ground level. Also, these anticyclonic conditions were also responsible for the unusual rainfall which took place in Odisha, as well as the historic Dubai floods of April 17. Now, in winter condition, even if then the anticyclonic condition will prevail, will it lead to high temperature or low temperature? It will lead to low temperature. Why so? Because here in the winter time, there is a limited amount of solar radiation which is falling on the ground. But there exist clear skies. So the earth will reflect the maximum amount of extraterrestrial radiation towards the sky and thus will lose the heat and ultimately become cool. So now when we have understood the concept of anticyclone and have seen some important characteristics, let's see what are the factors which actually impact this anticyclone. First is the formation of intertropical convergence zone. So as by the month of June will arrive, the sun will reach to the Tropic of Cancer. And in that particular region, as the sun will be directly overhead, it will lead to the maximum temperature there. Thus, there will be intensification of extreme heat at that particular region. So, there is a possibility that because of the shifting of the ITCZ in the June month, it will create an extreme low pressure area in that particular region, and thus the anticyclonic condition will weaken now. Also, there prevails jet stream over Indian subcontinent. What are jet stream? Jet stream are basically fast meandering flow of wind which is basically confined to the upper troposphere region, right? So see, if there is convergence taking place at the ground level, it is obvious that there will take place divergence at the upper troposphere. If there is divergence taking place at the ground level, as in the case of anticyclone, it is obvious that at the upper level there will take place convergence. So what happens that in Indian subcontinent there is westerly jet stream. Westerly jet stream means it is blowing from west to east. So this westerly jet stream, it shifts around 30° north because of the shifting of the intertropical convergence zone. And then there is an easterly jet stream which blows around 10° north to the Bay of Bengal, Arabian Sea, Indian Ocean. Now, when the high pressure is created at the Indian Ocean or at the Indian subcontinent, then at the upper level, this westerly jet stream will come here to converge and easterly jet stream will converge as well. Thus, they will lead to the intensification of anticyclones. Then, as per the report, because of the onset of El Nino, what is El Nino? El Nino is basically a climatic phenomena where there take place the warming of Central Pacific Ocean. And because of that warming, the wind which normally blows in this direction and ultimately lead to the seasonal reversal of wind, which is called as monsoon when it comes to us, that will get weakened. Because of the onset of this El Nino condition and the global warming induced heat waves, these anticyclonic conditions has further intensified, thus leading to the extreme rise in the temperature which is being faced across the country. Thus, the Indian Meteorological Department has joined a sub-seasonal and seasonal prediction project, S2S prediction project, which is a weather and climate prediction project which has been launched by the World Climate Research Program under the World Meteorological Organization, where it provides for a three-step approach such as READY, where the mid-range and short-range forecast is provided, the volunteers are trained, the community is sensitized, and an early warning system is enabled. Then comes the second stage, which is SET. SET deals with continuing monitoring of the shorter time scale forecast, alerting the volunteers, warning the community, and creating local preparation activities. And finally comes your GO stage, where there will be the deployment of the assessment team and distribution of instructions to the community if the evacuation is about to take place. However, the Indian Meteorological Department is mired with several shortcomings and challenges. One of them is that the IMD currently operates only 800 automatic weather radars, 1500 rain gauges, and 37 Doppler weather radars. At the same time, there is the need of new ground stations which shall be installed in quick manner. And there are existing infrastructure such as the state governments and private companies 20,000 ground stations, but these are not being utilized by IMD. Thus, IMD need to take adequate steps to ensure that we strengthen our early warning system. For this, which purpose the incorporation of artificial intelligence, machine learning shall also be done, and the National Disaster Management Authority shall inculcate this three-step approach to effectively deal with the issue of climate change as well as various kind of disasters which are occurring in our country. With these suggestions, we move forward to the next news. As 175 countries meet for the fourth round of negotiations to curb the plastic pollution in Ottawa, Canada, the article highlights on the plastic menace which is taking place and the issues in signing this new global plastic treaty. This plastic treaty under negotiations forms an important component of your GS3 paper under the theme of environment pollution and degradation. Well, as we have discussed in detail about the plastic menace which is impacting the country as well as world in our previous lecture, in this particular lecture we will remain specific to the details which has been provided by the article. First of which says that the plastic production has significantly increased from being 2 million ton in the year of 1950 to 450 million ton by the year of 2019. And this is further going to double by the year of 2050 and triple by the year of 2060 if effective checks are not implemented. Then the major cause of concern with the plastic that it is non-biodegradable. The reason being that it is basically a synthetic polymer derived from the fossil fuels, because of which it cannot be decomposed by the microorganisms, and thus it takes 20 to 10,000 years to degrade. Further, this plastic waste generation is actually going to jump by 62% from 2024 to 2050. And one of the major cause of that is the poor management. As per the report, only 10% of the global plastic waste is actually being recycled. Thus, according to the Lancet study, there exists 6 billion ton of accumulated plastic waste around the world. A great example of that is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And obviously, it has a lot of significant and detrimental impact on environment, human and animals. For example, as per the OECD report, there was 1.8 billion ton of greenhouse gas emission due to the production of plastic, because it is being extracted from fossil fuels. That amounted to 3.4% of the total greenhouse gas emission in 2023. And this can further increase to 20% by the year of 2030 itself. Then this plastic, it starts discarding itself into microplastic and nanoplastic, and it contains several harmful chemicals, more than 16,000 as per the report, such as bisphenol A, which are basically the endocrine disruptors, and it can have severe health impact on humans, even leading to cancer. As can be seen from the picture, this plastic enters into the human body from various sources such as farmland, air, freshwater oceans, and this leaks into the environment, into rivers, and gets dumped into the ocean. And this waste, as we talked about, it will break down into microplastic and nanoparticles, and it will enter into our body, and thus leading to severe health diseases. Same is the case with microbeads, which are released and harms the marine life, especially the tortoises. Thus, several countries, including our country, has started talking about forming a global plastic treaty, whose potential provisions has been listed down in the article, such as the treaty might aim to put a cap on plastic production. Now, however, the poor countries who have poor financial economic status, obviously they cannot afford to turn into non-plastic overnight. Thus, the treaty can also provide for rich nations that they shall help in transitioning these poor nations to the non-plastic entirety. Then, there can be a ban on the particular type of plastic, such as single-use plastic and various kind of chemical additives which are being used to create these plastics, such as polyethylene, polythene, etc. Then it can be a legally binding targets for recycling and the recycled content, especially among various manufacturing companies, such as, let's say, the companies who create these plastic bottles from which we drink, right? And then there can be a just transition framework for the waste pickers who rely on this industry for their livelihood. However, as highlighted by the report, there exist several challenges. First of them is obviously that, as we are talking about, this plastic is being created from fossil fuels. So it is obvious that various oil and gas producing countries, which are major benefactor from this plastic production, they will obviously be against it, right? For example, there is Russia, there is Saudi Arabia, there is Iran, who are against such global plastic treaty. Then the second issue is that whether any such treaty is going to be framed through the consensus framework or through the majority vote. Because if this majority vote will come into play, then the stand of high ambition coalition will become very important. This high ambition coalition forms of 65 countries from Africa as well as European Union, who aims to end the plastic pollution by 2040, such as they are aiming to phase out single-use plastic by the year of 2040. Keep this in mind that neither USA nor India is part of this high ambition coalition, right? Because India is trying to get this treaty signed with the target of phase down of single-use plastic, rather phase out of single-use plastic. Why? Because this plastic industry in our country employs 1 million people and earns us a revenue of 25,000 crore. So there are a lot of economic considerations which are into the play. There are a lot of blocks which are being formed. There is a lot of lobbying which is being done for the formation of this plastic treaty. But the major target for these countries shall be that there shall be an investment fund which shall be created to invest on research in the direction of viable alternative for the plastic. With these suggestions, we move forward to the next news. The article highlights the weakening and strengthening of the Indian rupees, nominal effective exchange rate and real effective exchange rate over the course of years from 2004 and 5 to 2023 and 24. These economic concepts of NEER and REER forms an important component of your prelims paper under the larger theme of economy. Well, as India is part of the globalized market, it is obvious that we trade with other countries. Thus, the health of our Indian rupee depends upon that what is its demand in international market. Similarly, what is the demand of US dollar in the international market. Now, the Indian rupee in comparison to US dollar, as per the report, has depreciated by 27% between 2014, when it used to be 1 US dollar used to be rupees 60, and now it has come down to 83 rupees in 2023. Thus, as we can see that our current currency has weakened in comparison to US dollar. So by developing this basic understanding, we can say that now if we are buying a product from US, it is obvious that we have to pay more. Thus our imports has become expensive. And at the same time, if there is an exporter and let's say he was selling one particular unit which at that time got him 1 US dollar. So in 2014 he was earning 60 rupees and now he is earning 83 rupees. So the exports has become much more profitable. With this basic understanding, let's try to understand a nominal effective exchange rate. An effective exchange rate basically means that it is a exchange rate over which one particular rupee is brought and it is measured on the basket of currencies. Now RBI calculate this nominal effective exchange rate on the basis of indices of rupees against the basket of 6 major currencies which are listed here, such as US dollar, Japanese yen, Chinese renminbi, United Kingdom's pound, euro, or well as Hong Kong dollar. And we calculate these values by providing each currency with a particular weight. And the amount which Indian rupee will require to buy that particular currency is called as nominal exchange rate, which you guys can see here. Now it is based upon these 6 currencies and 40 other currencies which forms another basket which comprises of the 88% of India's total trade, and this 6 currency comprises of 12%. Keep this in mind that all this exchange of rupee and dollar which is taking place, it is nominal, that is completely on today's basis, and we are not including or factoring any kind of inflation in the nominal exchange rate. Then it is calculated on the base year value of 100 for the 2015 to 16. So if the nominal exchange rate has actually increased, we can say that our currency has actually appreciated, right? And if there is a decline in nominal exchange rate, it is obvious that our currency has depreciated, as can be seen from the table. That over a period of time our currency has depreciated. But as per the report, such depreciation was much more sharper during the previous government regime, and during the current government regime, this decline which was taking place, it has been arrested to a limited effect. Then this was the nominal exchange rate, where you were offering me the dollar, I was offering you the rupees in return of that. Now what if we start calculating it in the terms that what if we calculate the inflation of our currencies as well? That is exactly what is called as the real effective exchange rate, where the NEER or the nominal exchange rate is actually now adjusted for the inflation. And the formula for that is that we take the NEER, we multiply it by the consumer price index or the indices of inflation of the domestic country, let's say that is India, and the inflation which is taking place in the foreign country. So for example, let's say that in Indonesia, Indonesia's nominal effective exchange rate fell by 4.5%, and in comparison to India, India's nominal effective exchange rate fell by 3.5%. So by this logic we can say that the Indonesian currency has weakened. But if the inflation in our country is much more than the NEER, and in Indonesian currency it is actually less, let's say 1.5%, what it will mean is that now the internal market which exists in Indonesia, it is facing less inflation. So people still have that demand for the product. At the same time, because the nominal effective exchange rate has widened, it will mean that the import has become expensive. So thus, the people of Indonesia, they will start buying home products. So the economy of Indonesia will improve. On the other hand, for India, what is happening? We already have a high inflation rate. At the same time, our nominal effective exchange rate is a bit low. So we'll start importing the products from outside, thus hampering our trade competitiveness. This is exactly what happens, where in the case of REER as well, we take the base year value of 100 for the year of 2015 and 16. Now, if a country's NEER falls less than its domestic inflation rate, as we saw here, then it actually means that the appreciation has taken of the currency in the real terms. So what happens is that, let's say, our real effective exchange rate was 65 to 1 US dollar. Now our currency has appreciated, which means that now 60 rupee is 1 US dollar. So let's say that earlier when I was buying an Adidas shoes from USA, it used to cost me 65 into 10, let's say 650 rupees. But now it is costing me only 650 rupees. So it is obvious, only 600 rupees. So it is obvious that now, because the things has become cheaper for me, the real effective exchange rate has increased, the thing has become cheaper for me, so the imports will start increasing. Thus, the increase in real effective exchange rate means that the cost of product which is being exported, it is more than the price of the import. The import has become cheaper, and thus there is the loss of trade competitiveness. So keep these two factors in your mind and try to solve this previous year prelims question. And do comment your answers in the comment box section. We move forward to the next segment. In this particular section, we are going to cover some news which are very relevant for your prelims examination and help you to eliminate some important statements. First of which talks about a chemical reaction called as combustion. Combustion is basically a type of a chemical reaction, also defined as a redox reaction, where two processes take place. One is reduction and the other is oxidation. Now here the hydrocarbon, when it is combined with oxygen, it ultimately leads to the production of carbon dioxide or smoke, water in the form of vaporization of flame, and heat as well as light. Here there are two important components. One is the oxidant, that is the substance which is losing the electron, and the other is the reductant, which is basically gaining the electron. So oxidant here can be considered as O2, and gaining the electron is basically your hydrocarbon. Keep this in mind that all combustion reaction do releases energy. And when heat it starts evaporating the fuel, it leads to flame, and then there is a gaseous mix of highly oxidized fuel which is called as smoke. Keep this chemical reaction in your mind. And the next news is about the increasing import from China. As per the report of Global Trade Research Initiative, India's import from China has significantly increased from being $70 billion in 2018-19 to reaching $101 billion in 2023-24. which actually comprises of the 15% of the total merchandise import which our country does, amounting to $677 billion. Then the share of industrial goods import has actually increased from 21% to 30% in the last 15 years. Now there is a major conception that we are relying on China only for the electronic goods, which obviously we rely as up to 43%, but for various other sectors such as 8 major industrial sector, India is heavily reliant when it comes to China, such as 39% reliance for machinery, 38% for textile and clothing, 26% for chemical and pharmaceuticals, and 26% as well for automobiles. Then the cumulative trade deficit which has incurred because of this high reliance on China amounts to $387 billion, which we have paid to the Chinese who are disturbing us at our borders between 2018 to 23. While despite our efforts of Make in India and production linked incentive scheme and the initiatives of Atmanirbhar Bharat, even after that our exports has stagnated at a 16 billion annually. Thus, as we can see from this report, that there is immediate need of reforms which are required, and there is huge impetus which shall be given on the use of domestic products. The next news talks about the famous painter Raja Ravi Verma, who lived from 1848 to 1906, and he was patronized by Ailyam Thirumal, or who was the Maharaja of Travancore. Now Raja Ravi Verma was among the first Indian artists to master the craft of oil painting, and he set up his own printing press at Ghatkopar in Maharashtra in the year of 1894. Some of his famous works are Shakuntala looking at for Dushyant, Damayanti talking to the swan, then the famous painting of the reclining lady, as well as Indu Lakha. Now Raja Ravi Verma here was awarded with Kesar-e-Hind medal in the 1904, and a very interesting fact that a crater was actually named on the planet Mercury on the name of Raja Ravi Verma in the year of 2013. We move forward to the next news, which talks about INS Vikrant. Now, India was dependent on other countries when it came to having an aircraft carrier in the ocean, such as we imported Vikrant from United Kingdom in 1961, which played a very important role in the Indo-Pak War of 1971. Then Virat from UK again in 1987, and the currently operating Vikramaditya from Russia in 2013. Now these aircraft carriers play an important role in carrying India's various aircraft machinery into the ocean for a purpose of immediate attack and stealth, such as MiG-29 fighter, multi-role helicopters, light helicopters such as Tejas. Now we will specifically talk about in the context of INS Vikrant, which is indigenously designed and constructed up to 76% of its indigenous content, and it was created with the collaboration between SAI, DRDO as well as Indian Navy. It is 262 meter long and 62 meter wide, and it is operated by the thrust power of 4 General Electric LM2500 engines. which helps it to achieve the maximum speed of 28 knots and to have an endurance of 75,000 nautical miles. As we said, it can operate the air wing of 30 aircraft. Also, an interesting fact that there is a Stober method to launch and recover the aircrafts on this particular INS Vikrant. Also, India is planning to move for the second indigenous aircraft carrier just to repeat the success of Vikrant. With this, we have reached to the end of our discussion today. Do not forget to attempt the questions at the end of the video and test your knowledge. We will meet in a very interesting discussion very soon. Till then, all the very best for your preparation, guys, and thank you.